He called her too much on her own front steps. Eli stopped halfway down the stairs, waiting for her signal. The next word out of her mouth would
Soft
decide who she
murmuring.
believed.
What do you need from me?
Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe, tap like, and share this video. The more voices we reach, the louder these stories become. And drop your city in the comments. Let's see where love finds us. The box was heavier than it looked, and Sarah Whitfield was too stubborn to admit it. She hooked her hip under the edge, thighs burning as she climbed the second flight of stairs. Her emerald wrap dress clung to her curves, the fabric damp at the small of her back. Blonde hair, twisted into a messy bun that morning, had surrendered hours ago, strands sticking to her flushed cheeks. Almost there, she muttered, lying to herself. There were still at least 6 boxes left in the moving van. Her heel caught on the stair. The box lurched, smacking into the railing. Something inside clinked. She sucked in a breath through her teeth. "Don't you dare be my wine glasses," she whispered to the box. "You're all I have left." "Want a hand?" The voice came from above her, deep, calm. It rolled down the stairwell like warm smoke. Sarah froze, fingers tightening on the cardboard. She tilted her head up. He was standing at the top of the landing, one hand on the rail. Tall, broad shoulders filling out a faded black t-shirt, work pants dusty and paint splattered. Deep brown skin, close-cropped hair, a neatly trimmed beard framing a mouth that looked like it knew how to say both kind things and dangerous truths. His eyes, dark, steady, ran over her quickly, taking in the box, the strain in her arms, the wobble of her knees. His gaze didn't linger on her breasts or her hips the way she was used to with men. It landed on her hands. "You're about to lose that," he said, nodding at the box. "I'm fine," she answered quickly, the words automatic. Her chest heaved. The box was shaving hours off her life. "I've got it." He didn't argue. He lifted his palm, a small, patient surrender. "Okay, just figured I'd offer before you sacrificed your entire spine." One corner of her mouth twitched. "Damn it." Sarah jerked her gaze away, breathing out through her nose. She took another step. The box slipped an inch in her sweaty grip. "Damn," she hissed. He was moving before she asked. He came down 2 steps in 3 strides, big hands bracketing the box without yanking it away. She felt the sudden relief in her arms as he took most of the weight, but his grip stayed light enough that she was still technically holding it. "Let me take it," he said quietly. "You steer?" Something in his tone, no pressure, no lecture, uncurled a fraction of the tension in her chest. She nodded once. They climbed the remaining steps together. Up close he smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and sawdust, like someone who actually fixed things for a living. Sarah tried not to notice the flex of his forearms, the way his shirt stretched across his torso when he adjusted his hold. At the 3rd floor landing, she nudged the door with her hip. 3C, the disaster zone. He chuckled, low and warm. He carried the box into the apartment like it weighed nothing. The place was chaos. Half-unpacked boxes, a sad mattress on the floor, her favourite oversized chair jammed in a corner. Afternoon light spilled in through the big windows, highlighting dust motes and the smudges on her heart she couldn't quite scrub out. "Where do you want it?" he asked. "Kitchen corner, I guess. That's the please don't break, I'm emotionally attached stack." He set the box down gently, like he'd heard her. Only then did he straighten and look around. "You just move in? Is it that obvious?" He glanced at the mountain of boxes, the lone coffee mug on the counter, the roll of trash bags sitting in the sink. A little. She shifted her weight, suddenly aware of how her dress hugged her hips. The old Sarah, the one from before everything exploded, would have tossed her hair, thrown out a flirty comment. This Sarah just wanted to survive the day without crying in front of a stranger. "Thanks," she said, folding her arms under her chest. "I appreciate the assist. Anytime." He wiped his palms on his pants, then held one out. "Eli Carter. I'm down in 1A. I do maintenance for the building and whatever else breaks around here." She hesitated before taking his hand. His grip was warm, firm, not crushing. He didn't hold on too long. "Sarah," she said. "Whitfield, tenant of 3C, current owner of terrible decisions and too many books." One of his eyebrows lifted. Books are never a terrible decision. "You haven't seen how many I own." He smiled then, full and real, and she had the irrational thought that someone should write a warning label about it. It softened the edges of his face without taking away the seriousness in his eyes. "You got more boxes in the truck?" he asked. The defensive part of her, the parts stitched together by past hurts and whispered accusations, needy too much, always needing saving, flared up again. "I can handle it," she said. "Really, I'm sure you can." Eli leaned his shoulder against the doorframe. "But the sun's going down and the forecast says rain. If it starts pouring, those boxes won't care how independent you are." Her jaw clenched. He wasn't wrong. The grey edge of clouds was already pushing across the sky. He must have seen her hesitation. He pushed off the frame, hands dropping to his sides. "Tell you what," he said, "I'll be outside fixing the mailbox that decided to die yesterday. If you decide you want another pair of hands, you know where to yell." He didn't wait for her answer. He stepped into the hall, gave her a small nod, and disappeared toward the stairs. No pushing, no comment about how a woman like her shouldn't be doing this alone. No pity. Sera closed the door slowly. Her heart thudded faster than it should for such a short conversation. She pressed her back against the wood, head tipping back. New city, new rules, she reminded herself. No more men who act like they're doing you a favor just by breathing near you. Still, when she went back down to the truck, she caught herself glancing toward the row of mailboxes. Eli was there, as promised, crouched with a toolbox open beside him. He didn't look up, didn't hover, just worked, letting her have her space. She loaded another box into her arms, muscles screaming. Halfway up the first flight, she heard footsteps behind her, slow and measured. "I'm just walking up the stairs," he said, as if reading her mind. "Not trying to steal your box, Whitfield." She snorted despite herself. "You say that like it's not weighing more by the minute. I can hear it complaining from here." She made it to the second landing before the box sagged in her arms. Without a word, his hands slid under it again, sharing the weight. Not taking it, sharing it. They moved in sync this time. She hated how good it felt. They repeated the pattern for the next hour. She'd start with a box. He'd appear on the stairs just when her grip was failing. They'd carry it up together in silence or in bits of light conversation. Where she'd moved from, 2 hours away, a whole world apart. What he actually did, carpentry, plumbing, a little bit of everything. He never asked why she moved. She never asked why a man like him was in a low-rent building fixing mailboxes. By the time the last box was stacked in her living room, the sky had darkened and the first drops of rain tapped at the windows. "That's all of it," she said, brushing hair off her damp forehead. Her dress clung to her, but she was too exhausted to care. "You didn't have to help this much." He glanced at the boxes, then at her. "You didn't have to let me." Something in her chest stumbled. He moved toward the door, then paused. "You got food? Or did all your kitchen stuff just arrive in those emotionally attached boxes?" "Frozen pizza and coffee," she said. "I'm a woman of culture." His mouth curved. "If you smell gas or your oven looks at you funny, call me before you light anything. Sometimes these old lines act up. My number's on the board in the lobby. Or..." He patted his pockets, came up with a pen, and snagged a piece of torn cardboard from the top of a box. "Here." He scribbled quickly and set the cardboard on the counter. No dramatics, no, "you should call me sometime" wink. "Welcome to the building, Sera," he said. "Thanks, Eli." She watched him leave, listened to his footsteps fade down the stairs. The apartment felt bigger and quieter without him in it. Only when she went to put the pizza in the oven did she finally glance at the cardboard. "Eli, 1A. If something breaks, knock. If you're not sure it's broken, knock anyway. No ask, no invitation she'd have to dodge. Just there. Solid. An offer, not a demand." Sera pressed her thumb to the edge of the cardboard, feeling the groove where the pen had dug in. She told herself she wouldn't need that number, but she left it on the counter right where she could see it. The rain started the night Sera's oven tried to kill her. 3 weeks after move-in, the apartment had finally stopped echoing. There were curtains now, a rug that didn't quite match but felt good under her bare feet, and books stacked everywhere in unstable towers. Her curves had memorized the shape of her favorite armchair, and the city noise had become a background hum instead of a threat. She'd also memorized something else. "Eli, 1A. If something breaks, knock. If you're not sure it's broken, knock anyway." She'd read it so many times she could see the words even with her eyes closed. On that Thursday night, the air was thick and heavy, clouds pressing low. Her day had been a mess. Work emails full of thinly veiled criticism from a boss who thought "you're so emotional" was feedback, not an insult. Her ex had texted, too, a casual, cruel line about how he hoped the new place has stairs you could use the workout. She'd laughed it off, then stared at her reflection too long. Now, barefoot in her kitchen, she slid a frozen lasagna into the oven and turned the knob. The flame sputtered, wavered, and then a sharp, unfamiliar smell hit her nose. Gas. Her heart lurched. No, no, no! She twisted the knob off, but the hiss continued, soft and sinister. Her throat tightened. She backed away, mind flashing through every news story she'd ever read about explosions, every time someone had joked about her being too much. And now it felt literal, like even cooking dinner could get her blown up. Window. Open the window. Her hands shook as she fumbled with the latch. The old frame stuck, refusing to budge. She shoved harder, hip pressed against the sill, breath coming too fast. "You're overreacting," she told herself. Like always, it's probably nothing. But the smell was there, real, persistent. Her gaze snapped to the counter, to the piece of cardboard that had lived there since the day she moved in. If something breaks, knock. If you're not sure it's broken, knock anyway. Her pride reared up. She'd promised herself she wouldn't be the kind of woman who ran to a man every time life got hard. Not after the last one made her pay for every favor with a piece of herself. Another faint hiss. Her chest tightened. "Okay," she whispered. "This is not about being needy. This is about not dying in a lasagna explosion." She grabbed her keys and bolted. The hallway felt weirdly quiet, like the building was holding its breath. She went down one flight, nearly tripping on the last step, then forced herself to slow before she reached 1A. Her heart was pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it through the door. She raised her hand and knocked. It opened after the second tap. Eli filled the doorway, barefoot in grey sweats and a black t-shirt, a towel slung over his shoulder like she'd interrupted a shower. Water still glistened along his collarbone, trailing down dark skin. His eyes flicked over her face, her heaving chest, the tremor in her hand. "What's wrong?" he asked, no preamble, voice anchored and steady. She swallowed. Maybe my oven is hissing, and it smells like gas, or maybe I'm imagining it. I could be imagining it. I have this habit of making everything a big deal," and he was already reaching for the hook by the door, grabbing a worn-out toolbox and an Old Navy hoodie. "You shut it off?" "Yes. I turned the knobs. I'm sorry, I know it's late. Sera." He shrugged into the hoodie, zipping it halfway. "You did the right thing. Let's go check it out, yeah?" The words landed somewhere low in her chest, warm and disorienting. You did the right thing. Nobody ever said that when she panicked. Usually it was calm down or you're making this worse. She nodded and stepped aside, letting him pass. As they climbed the stairs, he didn't pepper her with questions, didn't tease or minimize, just walked beside her, steps careful, listening. In her kitchen, the smell hit them both. "Good call," he said quietly. He crossed to the oven, moving with practiced ease. "Open the windows, all of them. Then wait in the living room." "I can help," she protested. "You already did," he replied, checking the knobs, the pilot, the line. "You noticed? Go breathe somewhere with less gas. I'll talk you through what I'm doing from here, okay?" It was such a small thing, the way he included her in the process, instead of shutting her out. She backed into the living room, throwing open the windows along the way. Cool, damp air flooded in, carrying the scent of rain and wet concrete. From the kitchen, his voice came steady and calm. "I'm turning off the valve. You might hear a click. That's good, means it's listening. After that, we keep these windows open for at least an hour. No sparks, no flames, no candles, tempting as they are." She laughed weakly. "Killing my vibe, Carter. Gas leaks tend to do that." He worked for several minutes. Each time a new noise happened, a scrape, a clank. He called out what it was before she could imagine the worst. By the time he finished, the smell had thinned into something bearable. He joined her in the living room, wiping his hands on a rag. Water droplets still clung to his curls at the edge of his hairline. He looked tired, like maybe it hadn't been the best night for emergency oven duty, but there was no hint of annoyance on his face. "I've shut off the gas line to the stove," he said. "I'll get the landlord to bring in someone to check it properly tomorrow. Until then, you're on a strict no-cook policy. Cold sandwiches only. Tragic, she murmured. My culinary skills were already questionable. He studied her for a moment. You okay? The question was simple. The answer wasn't. She could say yes, that's what she usually did. Make a joke, push everything down, pretend her heart wasn't still hammering against her ribs like it was trying to outrun her. Instead, maybe because the windows were open and the night air made her feel raw and honest, maybe because he'd moved through her kitchen like safety given human form, she said, no. He didn't rush into reassurance. He sat on the edge of the armchair opposite her, forearms resting on his knees, hands loosely clasped. His posture said, I'm here, not fix this for you. Tell me which part of no it is, he said softly. Scared, embarrassed, pissed off, all of the above? She blinked. Is too much an option? Something flickered in his eyes, a quick flash of anger that had nothing to do with her. Who told you that? She almost said nobody, out of habit. Then she shrugged, helpless. Pick a person, she muttered. My ex, my old boss, my mother. Take your pick. I react big. I feel big. I exist big. In this body, in this brain. People don't love that. They tolerate it until it's inconvenient. His jaw tightened. They don't sound like people worth setting yourself on fire to cook dinner for. Her lips parted. No one ever put it that plainly. He leaned back, gaze still on her. Listen, you smelled gas, you didn't ignore it, and you came to get help. That's not being dramatic. That's having instincts and listening to them. You'd be surprised how many people don't. Her throat grew thick. She blinked fast, refusing to let tears fall in front of a man who barely knew her. He noticed anyway. Of course he did. Hey, he said quietly. You don't owe me a brave face, Sera. I'm the guy who fixes broken things, remember? I see them all the time. They're still worth keeping. Her chest ached. I don't want to be broken, she whispered. You're not. His voice was firm now. You're bruised. There's a difference. Silence stretched between them, filled with the soft patter of rain on the windows and the distant rumble of traffic. You ever going to ask why I moved? She blurted out. I figured you'd tell me when you wanted to, he replied. What if I never do? Then I'll still fix your oven. A strangled laugh escaped her. He smiled, small but real. Can I make you a deal? Depends, she said, wary. I keep an eye on the building stuff, he said. Gas, pipes, locks, lights, the things that can actually hurt you if they go wrong. You keep an eye on the rest. Your heart, your boundaries, the line between I need help and I'm being used. You're allowed to knock when something's too heavy to carry alone. That's not weakness. That's being human. She stared at him, the edges of his form slightly blurred by the sheen in her eyes. No one earns the right to your heart because they turned a wrench, he added gently. They earn it by what they do when you're scared, when you say no, when you're not convenient. That's what I care about, not this. His hand flicked briefly, vaguely at her body, then dropped again, respectful distance maintained. That's yours. Heat climbed her neck, not the cheap kind of fluster she used to feel when men commented on her curves, but something else, something steadier, more terrifying. You're different, she said slowly. I've been the one knocking before, he admitted. On doors, on chances, on my own second shot at life. You learn things when you've been the inconvenience in someone else's story. She wanted to ask, about what he meant, about what he'd done, what doors had stayed closed. But the way he said it told her this was as far as he could go tonight. Thank you, she said instead, for coming up, for not making me feel stupid about it. Any time. He rose, rolling his shoulders. Leave the windows open. If you get dizzy, call me. Or if you don't want to bother me, call the gas company directly. Either way, don't talk yourself out of being safe. He moved toward the door, then paused. And Sera? He said over his shoulder. Yeah? Next time your brain starts telling you you're too much, tell it this. The building didn't explode tonight because you listened to it. That counts for something. Her laugh was mostly a sob. You're infuriatingly reasonable, you know that? I've been called worse. He smiled. Good night. After he left, the apartment felt different. The gas smell faded, but something else lingered. His words, his steady presence, the way he'd stepped in without stepping over her. She curled up in her armchair, blanket around her, listening to the rain. On the counter, the cardboard with his number caught a draft and fluttered, then settled again. She got up, walked over and added her own scrawl beneath his. Sera 3C, if I knock, I'm trying. Please don't let me talk myself out of it." She set the cardboard back down. He hadn't asked for her heart. But tonight, without meaning to, he'd earned a piece of her trust. 2 months later, Sera could tell the time by Eli's footsteps. Early mornings, he moved down the hall with a quick, focused rhythm, toolbox in hand, dark hoodie, headphones around his neck. Late evenings, the cadence changed, slower, like he was letting the day drain out before he reached his door. Sometimes, she'd be in her kitchen, thick thighs tucked against the counter as she prepped dinner, and she'd feel herself relax, just hearing him pass by. They'd fallen into a pattern. Coffee on the front steps on Sundays, her in leggings and an oversized sweater that hugged every curve, him in a worn t-shirt and jeans, steam rising from chipped mugs. Shared eye rolls about the neighbor who played terrible techno at 2 a.m. The occasional text when pipes rattled or her door stuck. He never flirted, not the way other men did. No lingering stares, no sleazy compliments about her body. He noticed her, sure. His eyes warmed when she laughed, softened when she forgot to armor herself, but he never reached for more than she offered. He didn't ask about her love life. He didn't offer to fix her heart. He just showed up. It scared her more than any smooth line ever had. On a grey Tuesday, everything finally cracked. Her job, already a grinding stress, finished the job of wearing her down. A new manager had decided Sera's directness was a liability. In the morning meeting in front of the whole team, he'd said, "You know, Sera, if you weren't so sensitive all the time, people might actually listen to you." Laughter. Awkward, nervous, but it still sliced. She held it together until she got back to her apartment, toes aching in her heels, her curvy body suddenly feeling like a suit of armor made of wet concrete. She shut the door, leaned her forehead against it, and exhaled. "You're fine. It's just another day." Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. I'm outside. We need to talk." Her stomach dropped. Only one person used that tone with her, like it was a command, not a request. Another buzz, this time with a name she hadn't seen in weeks. Marcus. Of course. She peeked through the peephole. He was there, leaning against the brick by the front entrance. Tall, handsome, in a polished way that used to make her feel lucky. Suit jacket, expensive watch, that same smug tilt to his mouth. The man who'd once told her he was doing her a favor by dating someone your size. Like he was adopting a rescue dog, the man she'd finally left. Sera's pulse thundered. For a split second, the old instinct rose. Fix your hair, stand up straighter, make yourself small so he doesn't get angry. She caught herself. No. She slipped on her flats, grabbed her keys, and walked downstairs. Each step felt like a conversation with herself. You don't owe him anything. You left. You're allowed to say no. She pushed open the door. Marcus straightened, eyes sweeping over her, her thick, curvy frame in a simple wrap dress, no makeup, hair in a messy bun. His gaze carried that same assessment she knew too well. "You look." He paused, searching for a word that would land just right. "Healthy." Her teeth clenched. "Why are you here?" "We didn't end things properly," he said. "You moved out like a thief in the night." "You called me a burden," she reminded him. "On the night I told you I was leaving. That felt pretty clear." He sighed like she was a child being dramatic. "Sera, you know I say things when I'm angry. I didn't mean it." "You said I was too much," she whispered. "Too emotional. Too needy. That men like you don't marry women like me. They take care of them until it gets exhausting." A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Are we really doing this in public?" "Yes," she said, surprising herself. "We are, because that's what you did. In front of your friends, in front of your co-workers." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I came here to give you a chance. No one else is going to put up with your intensity, Sera. You always feel attacked. You always need reassurance. You think any other guy is going to sign up for that, and this—" His hand flicked briefly at her body, without wanting something in return. The old shame rushed up, hot and nauseating. Her throat closed. Behind Marcus, the front door opened. Eli stepped out, hoodie zipped halfway, toolbox in hand. He took in the scene in one sweep. Marcus's posture, Sera's frozen shoulders, the way her fingers dug into her keys. His gaze flicked to her face. He didn't speak, didn't stride over and insert himself. He simply paused on the top step, giving her a quiet question in the lift of his brow. "Do you need me?" Her lungs unlocked. She straightened. "Marcus, I'm going to say this once. I left because you made my heart feel like a liability." Because you treated my love like a job you were too good for. I am not too much. I am not something you put up with." He scoffed. "Sera, I am a lot," she continued, voice shaking but steady. "That's true. I feel a lot. I care a lot. I love in ways that don't fit neatly into your calendar. If that's too heavy for you, fine. But don't you dare show up here and act like you're giving me a gift by offering half-hearted tolerance." The words felt like jumping off a cliff. Marcus glanced back, finally noticing Eli on the steps. Something ugly flashed across his face. "So this is why you moved? Some handyman with a savior complex?" Eli's jaw ticked, but he didn't move. Sera's chest burned. "Do not talk about him," she said, low. "He's done more for me in small, quiet ways than you did in an entire relationship." Marcus laughed, brittle. "What, he fixed your oven and now you think he understands you?" Eli shifted his weight, but still didn't interrupt. Sera felt something snap into place inside her, a bone resetting. "He came when I was scared," she said. "He listened. He didn't tell me I was overreacting. He didn't use my fear as proof that I'm broken. He just stood with me until I could breathe again. And then he went home. No strings. No expectation." She met Marcus's eyes. "That's more than you ever did." Anger flared. "So what? You think you're going to marry him now? You think some guy who lives in 1A is going to give you the life I can?" Eli flinched slightly at the mention of his apartment. Sera stepped closer to Marcus, refusing to let him see it. "I'm not here to compare bank accounts," she said. "I'm telling you to leave. My life is not yours to weigh anymore." He stared at her, stunned by the spine she'd decided to show today. Then his mouth twisted. "You'll come back," he said. "You always do. No one else stays." Sera felt the words hit, the familiar hook of them trying to dig into old wounds. Behind her, Eli spoke for the first time. "That's enough." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. He descended one step, toolbox still in hand, posture relaxed but unmovable. "I think she asked you to leave," he said. "I heard it pretty clearly from up there." Marcus bristled. "This is between us." Eli's gaze stayed calm. "You raised your voice at a woman on her own front walk. That makes it between all of us now." He didn't step in front of her. He stood slightly behind and to the side, a solid presence at her back, leaving her below, in the lead. She realized he was making himself the wall, not the hero. Sera inhaled, in, out, the way he'd coached her once when she panicked over the gas. "I'm not going to come back," she told Marcus quietly, "because I finally believe something you never did." "And what's that?" he snapped. "That I am not too much," she said. "I'm just not for you." Silence. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, dotting the sidewalk. "Leave," she said again. This time Marcus listened. He shook his head, scoffed, muttered something under his breath about her regretting this, then turned and stalked away, shoulders stiff. His car door slammed, engine revved, and then he was gone, taillights disappearing into the drizzle. Sera's legs wobbled. The adrenaline that had held her upright drained all at once. Eli stepped down to her level, careful, hands loose at his sides. "Can I?" he began, then stopped. "Do you want me to stay, or give you space?" "Stay," she whispered, before her fear could talk her out of it. His eyes softened. "Okay, I'm here. Can I touch you?" She nodded, a tiny movement. He raised his hands slowly, giving her time to refuse. When she didn't, he placed them gently on her upper arms, warmth seeping through the fabric of her dress. No pulling her in, no crushing hug. Just steady pressure, an anchor. Her chest hitched. Tears spilled over, hot and sudden, tracking down her cheeks and mixing with the rain. "I hate that he can still get to me," she choked out. "I hate that part of me believed him. That no one else would stay." Eli's thumbs moved, not quite rubbing, just a grounding shift. "He spent a long time teaching you that lie," he said. "It doesn't disappear because you changed your address." "I sounded stupid, didn't I?" He shook his head. "You sounded like a woman telling the truth. That's the bravest thing I've heard on these steps." She laughed wetly. "You're biased." "I am," he admitted. "I like the way you tell the truth." Her heart stumbled. They stood there for a long moment, rain soaking into his hoodie, turning her hair into damp curls around her face. Cars passed, someone's dog barked in the distance, but the world felt small, just the two of them and the echo of what she'd just done. Finally, she drew in a shaky breath. "You never asked," she said. "About what? Why I left him? Why I stay alone?" His gaze searched her face. "Sera, I told you before, You owe me nothing you don't want to give. I know, she swallowed. That's why I want to tell you. They went back inside. He left faint wet footprints on the hallway floor. She'd wipe them up later. In her apartment, she tossed her keys on the counter next to the cardboard with their messy handwriting. His line, hers, parallel. They sat on the couch, not touching now, a respectful space between them. She told him everything. Not every excruciating detail, but enough. The slow erosion of her confidence, the way Marcus had chipped away at her until she apologized for existing. The nights she'd gone to sleep feeling like a burden. The final straw, a casual comment at a party about how women like Sera should be grateful anyone wants them. She watched Eli's hands fist and unfist on his knees, jaw clenched, eyes dark. But he didn't interrupt, didn't turn her pain into a monologue about what he would have done. When she finished, the room was quiet. "Thank you," he said, "for trusting me with that." "I keep waiting," she admitted, voice small, "for you to ask for something, for all this kindness to have a bill at the end." He held her gaze. "I don't want payment, Sera." "Then what do you want?" she whispered. "Really?" He exhaled, long and steady, like he was deciding whether to jump too. "I want you to know," he said slowly, "that you're allowed to want more than survival, that you're allowed to have someone in your life who doesn't keep a tally. I want to be someone you can knock on when you're scared or happy or tired or craving bad lasagna. I want," his throat flexed, "I want whatever you're willing to give, not more, never less." Her breath caught. "You're not asking for my heart." He shook his head. "I won't. That's yours. But if one day you decide to offer me a piece of it, I promise I'll treat it like your oven that night." She frowned, confused. "Like a faulty gas line?" He smiled, small and soft. "Like something powerful and important that deserves caution, respect, and care. Something you don't play with, you protect." Tears burned again. "You know you're ridiculously corny, right?" she said thickly. "I've been called worse." She hesitated, fingers twisting in the hem of her dress. The old fear rose up, screaming that this was too much, too fast, too risky, that she was setting herself up to be abandoned again. Underneath it, something quieter spoke. He never asked, he just stayed. Sera scooted closer inch by inch until their knees brushed. She felt his breath hitch, saw his hands flex against his thighs as he held himself still. "Eli?" she whispered. "Yeah? Can I try something?" Her voice trembled. "If I panic, I might take it back. I need you to be okay with that." "I will be," he said immediately. "You set the pace, Sera, always." Her heart stuttered at the certainty in his tone. "Can I kiss you?" she asked. His eyes closed for a second, like the question landed somewhere deep. When he opened them again, they were warm and steady. "Yes," he said, "if you still want to." She leaned in slowly, giving herself time to change her mind. Her hand rose, hovering near his jaw. "Touch?" she asked. He tilted his head. "Please." Her fingers brushed his cheek, rough with evening stubble. Heat bloomed under her palm. She slid closer until her chest brushed his arm, soft curves pressing against solid muscle. For once she didn't apologize for taking up space. She kissed him. It was not fireworks and movie music. It was something quieter, more profound, a careful meeting, a question and an answer. His lips were warm and patient, moving only as much as she did. When she faltered, he eased back a fraction, letting her lead again. When she finally pulled away, breath uneven, he rested his forehead against hers. "Okay?" he asked. She laughed, the sound wet and disbelieving. "More than okay." He smiled, and she realized she'd rarely seen him smile this wide. It made him look younger, but no less steady. "I still don't want your heart if you're not ready to give it," he murmured, "but I'm honored you trusted me with this." Sera drew back just enough to see his face clearly. "I'm not giving you my whole heart," she said. "Not yet. But—" She reached behind her, grabbed the cardboard from the counter, and pulled a pen from her pocket. Hand shaking slightly, she added one more line beneath their old notes. "If I fall, I want it to be with my eyes open." She held it out to him. "Can you hold this with me?" she asked. He covered her hand with his, their fingers tangling over the ink. "Yeah," he said quietly, "for as long as you want." And for the first time in a long time, Sera didn't feel like too much of anything. She felt chosen. Not because someone asked for her heart like it was a favor. Because, without even meaning to, Eli had earned his place inside it.